Good morning. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast discussion, and that means it's the end of the week. It's Friday, June 6, 2025. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen D. Martinos, DM number 9. Well, we have a lot to talk about here. We have the tropics. We got some thunderstorms we're going to be keeping an eye on. Yes, I know it's occurring during the weekend, and everyone wants to go out and enjoy themselves in the weekend, but it won't be a washout this weekend. We'll talk about that. And of course, the pattern evolution overall. If you enjoy these videos, and I know you do, I see you, definitely like, share, and subscribe. It actually helps the channel out quite a bit. And, let your friends and family know where you get this excellent weather information from. And if you're interested in more detailed analysis that this video provides, I do every day in the premium section, definitely check out the premium consulting membership, only $15 a month. So, pretty good value. Now, let's dive into some of the information here. Now, I know you might have heard from other sources, perhaps other YouTube videos or whatnot, of hurricanes and major tropical development around Florida and in the Gulf Coast, but in reality, it's as quiet as you could possibly get, which kind of tells you when it comes to tropical forecasting, you really do not want to trust something like, the GFS model 10 to 15 days out. It's typically one that is, it's great for the sci-fi channel. I'll put it that way, but not always the best in terms of actual forecasting or giving people a heads up. And also, this isn't anything that's new. This goes back way back to when I was in college, a long time ago, in the previous century. In the 1990s, we had this thing called the MRF, which we used to call Murphicanes, because it literally produced hurricanes all the time, which you never actually believed to be reality. But it was always kind of a little insider joke for us meteorologists, and all the other kids in college looked at us like really weird because, we were nerds. What can I say? Now, when we look at the current conditions now, what do we see? We see vertical wind shear. You see the clouds moving in this direction and this direction. That's vertical wind shear. That's not good for tropical development. We also have a lot of Sahara dust throughout much of the Atlantic, and Sahara dust is very dry and very not good for tropical development. It kind of short circuits warm core low pressure system development. So not much really going on, not really anything expected from the NHC over the next 7 days. And the intertropical convergence zone, which is just right here, is very quiet for this time of year. It's almost unactive. I mean, yesterday it was even worse. It was even less convection. So we're not really seeing much in the way of activity. Now, one of the tools I like to use is the European model, but a specific feature in the European model called the total water column. Okay, this is precipitable water value. That's what I was trying to say. And the reason why this is really good to use is that the nature of a warm core low produces specific, unique signatures with precipitable water, okay? Because of the nature of warm core development. This allows them to pick out the difference between a low pressure system that is what we call cold core and a low pressure system that's called warm core. So that way we don't make a mistake of suggesting that an area low pressure off the southeast coast is a warm core low or anything of that nature because of the structure. Now, in this case, off the southeast coast, we can zoom in here. Notice you have dry air coming in, moisture air coming in. This is a clash, a frontal clash, a clash of air masses. This is a symbol of a cold core low. So what would a warm core low look like? Well, right now, you can see not much really developing here. But if we look at the Eastern Pacific, you will be able to see development right in just a moment right here. There we go. You see this signal right here? This is the signal of a warm core low development. Notice precipitable water values go through the roof, and it's kind of like a ball, right? It's concentrated, right? So when you start to see this in the model, guys, we start to see that over the Atlantic. That's when you have, at the very least, a signal for a warm core low. And that is essentially what we have right here over the Pacific. Of course, no threat for us, and nothing like that is showing up in the Atlantic over the next 15 days. But when I use this model, guys, that's the type of signal I look for, because then it kind of tells me, okay, we got warm core cycle going on. We have the low pressure system forming. Moisture is pooling, being driven up into the atmosphere. It is a clear warm core low development. Meanwhile, over the rest of the Atlantic, we pretty much just have cold core low pressure system development. But also notice, just so you can look at the overall pattern, we're seeing more and more of an increase because our temperatures are getting warmer. Precipitable water values along the East Coast, and you're noticing we're getting more and more into this range. And when we start to get into this range, precipitable water values over 2 inches, that's when we can get some very heavy rainfall and some tropical downpours. It doesn't always necessarily mean widespread rainfall, but it tells you what the potential is in terms of the heavy downpours. So a lot of interesting stuff evolving here. Now, looking at our pattern overall, the themes I was expecting for the summer appear to be taking hold. Our Western Atlantic ridge is showing up nice and bold. Our ridge over the southern plains continues to try to rebuild and become rather strong. There it is. And our weakness in between these ridges is showing up very nicely in the Tennessee River Valley up through the eastern Great Lakes. Meanwhile, the polar jet stream is lifting northward as pretty much expected. So what does this typically mean for us? Well, we get seasonably hot. We're talking about 80s, a few 90s here and there. Not seeing anything excessive, no mid 90s or 100s. If you see that in the mile guidance on your phone, that's likely an error. So we'll hold off on that. We see more of a southwestern flow, which is good news in terms of the fires in Canada, because a lot of that's to our northwest. So as long as we get our wind component primarily from the southwest, we'll be reducing the impacts from that through the summer. So that's certainly some good news. But it also introduces something that we're going to be dealing with this weekend, which is slow moving, nearly stationary cold fronts and waves of showers and thunderstorms. This does not mean the whole summer is going to be a washout or every day is going to feature rain. But in these scenarios, if you get a thunderstorm to pop with high precipitable water values, well, you can certainly end up in a scenario where you get a thunderstorm with very heavy downpours, frequent vivid lightning, hail, downburst wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. You can go from scattered cloud cover and beautiful weather conditions to a nasty thunderstorm with severe potential. So you really have to keep an eye to the sky in this type of weather pattern. So currently right now we have, well, there's our stationary front hanging off to the north of us with waves of low pressure. Get used to hearing this quite a bit, and certainly for this weekend, as this cold front is slowly going to sink south. Right now, to the south of the warm front, temperatures are in the lower to mid 70s, a few upper 70s sprinkled in there, with reasonable humidity, nothing that's excessive. To the north of the frontal boundary, not really a huge difference, lower to mid 70s. So again, because of the nature of this weather pattern, the difference in air masses in this scenario for this frontal boundary is really, really small. So that's going to be a factor as we go on talking about this forecast. So when we take a look at the latest weather tap radar and surface map, let me refresh this real fast. Sometimes I got to do that. And there we go. Okay, so there is our waves. Now notice, even in the strongest lifting, as we get closer to the polar trough here and towards the subtropical trough, which we'll separate in a moment, notice we're not really dealing with widespread rainfall. Scattered showers, a light shower here and there. It's not a scenario where you're dealing with rain all day, just that if you get hit with one of these thunderstorms, you're going to get quite a bit of rain in a very short period of time, like a half an inch, let's say. So this, again, is not a scenario of a washout, but, keep an eye to the sky and, just be aware that there's going to be that threat. And so you see that wave pushing towards the interior, towards the Poconos and Catskills, and that's going to be the primary theme today because this frontal boundary is nearly stationary, if not completely stationary. The coastal plain remains relatively quiet aside from maybe a rogue shower or an isolated thunderstorm. So why is this all evolving? Well, we have two jet streams that we're dealing with. We got the subtropical jet stream and the polar jet stream. The polar jet stream is back here and pretty much is going to remain up here. Every so often with the polar jet stream, you'll get a feature that kind of breaks off from the jet. That's typical of our weather pattern for this time of year, and that produces these upper level low couplets that show up from time to time. Notice the winds are from the southwest and west southwest at the upper levels with these upper level winds. And here's your subtropical jet stream from the west southwest. So the winds are nearly parallel to the cold front boundary. So what that means is that the cold front boundary moves like a snail. Okay. Think about when you're moving furniture. If you're moving furniture perpendicular, you can move it much faster, right? Whereas if you're moving it parallel, you're pushing along it, well, you're not going to move it all that much, will you? Because basically there's nothing to push the furniture out. So in this scenario, this is why the frontal boundary moves so slow. Meanwhile, you have these little tiny short waves in the subtropical jet stream that are going to create some mischief for us. And that's what we're going to have to watch out for Sunday. So a lot of little features in this weather pattern all setting up, as you can see on the jet stream here. Meanwhile, plenty of moisture in the atmosphere. Precipitable water values generally over 1 inch. When they start getting lifted, you get pushing over 1.5 inches. So this tells me there's plenty of low-level moisture. So when a thunderstorm is capable of developing, is capable of producing some pretty good rainfall. And so on the water vapor satellite picture, a lot of tropical moisture in the atmosphere. So we have plenty of moisture to work with. You see, so now we have two sources of information showing that high level of moisture. And you can see the various short waves. And again, the southwesterly flow transporting our air mass from the Gulf right up into our neck of the woods, which is why we're back into temperatures in the 70s and 80s and even a few 90s when we don't have as much rainfall, and a little bit sticky, just a little bit. On the infrared satellite picture, notice we're not seeing very strong lifting. We have some strong lifting here around the Gulf Stream with some thunderstorms with our subtropical shortwave out here, but again, no tropical development expected. We have another complex of storms with our next shortwave that's approaching here in the southern plains. That, again, not an impact to us. And then where we are closest to this frontal boundary, the lifting isn't really all that strong. Okay, it's relatively weak. Why? Well, again, in the plains, you got a little bit more dynamics in terms of the cold air transport and the strength of the short waves. In the Atlantic, you have the Gulf Stream creating a natural thermal gradient leading to your showers and thunderstorms. But for us, well, like I said, the frontal boundary isn't producing a very strong gradient. So it's not really producing what we call strong frontogenesis or isotropic lifting or anything of that nature. So as a result, the lifting isn't really all that strong. And you can see very clearly on our visible satellite picture, yeah, we have breaks of sun and clouds here, especially along the coastal plain, more cloud cover over the interior. This is lightning. So again, we're not seeing a widespread area of convection, but where we do see it, boy, it's lighting up big time. And this tells me, again, this matches up with the precipitable water idea. With a large amount of moisture in the atmosphere, you get more lightning potential, okay? So you can see what the setup is. Now, a little bit of good news before we go forward, and that is about our air quality. As you know, we had some smoke that passed through the region where we had more of a northwesterly flow. With the southwesterly flow, that smoke particle feature is declining. It's still not perfect, okay? We still have some. So if you have asthma or anything of that nature, still that might be a factor for you. If you have allergies, it's going to be a factor for you. But we're seeing gradual improvement. And we'll see more and more as we get more rainfall moving through the region that will clear out the atmosphere where you're at. So a little bit of a positive with this rainfall. It kind of clears out the atmosphere a bit. So when we take a look at 500 millibars, you can see we're not seeing a strong short wave in any way, shape, or form in any of these scenarios until we get to about the middle of next week with a stronger cold front on Tuesday. But we have enough of these pesky short waves to interact with all this moisture in the atmosphere to create unsettled conditions. One such short wave moves through tomorrow with, again, the focus of strong showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning. Now you see this feature here. This was the feature that we were watching for potential tropical development, at least the National Hurricane Center was. It's clearly all cold core, but because of this feature here and this feature here, see this little slight ridge, this is going to hamper some of the development of these thunderstorms because there's a lot of competing forces here. So because of that, this is why I'm not expecting widespread showers and thunderstorms. But I am expecting scattered showers and thunderstorms because you have lifting, but you also have some impedance here. So it's not widespread, but it's going to be a bit of a pest. Then when we get to Sunday, there's our next short wave in the subtropical jet stream. This is what's going to be producing thunderstorms over the southern plains right now. It will interact with this polar short wave, act like a large warm front, and drive a low pressure system and tropical moisture northward. So on Sunday evening into Monday, well, there's your potential for more widespread rainfall. There's nothing to inhibit, plenty of moisture to work with. And that's why we see the potential for widespread rainfall. And you can see on our precipitable water values, they remain pretty elevated all the way on through tomorrow. We get a slight break tomorrow evening into Sunday morning. And then Sunday afternoon and the evening, look at those precipitable water values. Again, this doesn't mean widespread rainfall guaranteed. What it tells me is that any lifting that occurs is going to feature showers capable of very heavy downpours. And that continues on through Sunday evening into Monday morning until we get a little bit of a break. Tuesday, again, we rebound again with the potential for some of these thunderstorms. This could be a little bit of convective feedback, but again, the theme, over 2 inches precipitable water value, that opens up the potential for thunderstorms capable of very heavy downpours, frequent lightning, hail, downburst wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. So again, it opens up the potential here, and that's what we're pretty much studying. In terms of 8 to 50 millibar temperatures, well, you can see with that first cold front, it really doesn't do much of a job. It pops in and it immediately moderates the temperatures right back to where we were. So not very impressive at all. On Sunday night and Monday, there is our warm air transport. And then finally, why am I expecting more thunderstorms on Tuesday? Because the cold front associated with the cold air transport associated with this cold front is going to be a bit stronger here. It's going to be a little bit more organized. So it's going to be able to drive through, and that opens up more stronger lifting, more concentrated lifting for Tuesday that we're going to watch out for. And of course, that brings us to our Cape values today. Focus over the interior. Tomorrow, not all that impressive, but still around the I-95 corridor and the Delaware River Valley. And then as we move through Sunday, embedded thunderstorms, but not really strong shear. So I'm not really seeing a lot of support for a widespread severe thunderstorms, but an isolated thunderstorm via downburst wind gusts, that's where all that moisture is being lifted, reaches the colder air, and then slams back down towards the surface, and that could push your wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. So we're going to use the NAM here to kind of get an idea of what we're talking about in terms of coverage, because it's a model that is designed specifically for convective weather. So that's when you use it. So in this case for today, again, you can see the focus over the interior and some strong thunderstorms. An isolated severe thunderstorm can't be ruled out. And then for tomorrow, again, we're not looking at a washout tomorrow morning, just scattered showers around the region, hit and miss. And then again for tomorrow afternoon, again, notice we're not talking about a widespread large line, but just pesky thunderstorms. So you can easily miss these thunderstorms as well as get hit by them. But again, like I said, because of the nature of the thunderstorms, you could get a pretty nice smack here. So again, when we take a look at the skew T in this scenario, you have the instability, you have the Cape. Cape value is over 2,000 joules per kilogram, so certainly the potential's there. You have the moisture, you just don't have the widespread lifting because of all the competing forces. So if you get a thunderstorm, the potential is there for a thunderstorm capable of very heavy downpours. Could see some hail, especially with some of these pockets of dry air. You certainly will have vivid lightning, not tornadoes. Why? All the winds are coming from the same direction, and they're relatively weak. But you could see downburst wind gusts, that's the D Cape here, because the moisture gets lifted in some of these dry pockets, it condenses, it cools, and it slams right back towards the surface. And because of that process, that could push your wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. So looking at the forecast overall, again, today along the coast, mix of sun and clouds, an isolated shower of thunderstorms, scattered showers of thunderstorms over the interior. Look for high temperatures in the upper 70s to lower 80s over the northern interior, mid 80s on the I-95 corridor, and upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast. Don't be surprised if we get a little bit more sunshine if we push more towards like 87, 88 degrees today around the I-95 corridor. For tonight into tomorrow morning, the cold front sinks south with scattered showers. Look for low temperatures in the lower to mid 60s. Tomorrow afternoon, the cold front starts to push off the coast with scattered showers and a few isolated thunderstorms. Again, some of these thunderstorms could be rather strong. Look for high temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 70s over the northern interior, mid to upper 70s on Long Island, upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast, and mid 80s, lower to mid 80s, should I say, in the I-95 corridor in Delaware River Valley. Basically, this area right here. Okay. Now, on Saturday night into Sunday, quiet. High pressures in control, winds from the northwest, scattered cloud cover, low temperatures in the mid to upper 50s over the northern interior, lower to mid 60s along the coast. On Sunday afternoon, the warm front and area low pressure approaches with increasing clouds and scattered showers becoming more widespread towards evening and becoming heavy at times. Look for high temperatures on Sunday with an easterly wind ranging from the upper 60s to mid to upper 60s over the interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast. Monday night, I should say on Sunday night into Monday morning, that low pressure system and warm front boundary lifts through the region with continued scattered showers, capable of heavy downpours. Look for low temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s over the northern interior, lower to mid 60s in the suburbs, mid to upper 60s in your urban areas. By Monday afternoon, look for scattered cloud cover with a few isolated showers lingering, with high temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 70s on Long Island, upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast, lower to mid 80s on the I-95 corridor, and mid to upper 70s over the interior. Monday night into Tuesday, scattered cloud cover with an isolated shower or two. We're ahead of the cold front at this point. Look for low temperatures on Tuesday morning ranging from the lower to mid 60s over the interior, lower to mid 60s in your suburbs, mid to upper 60s, maybe even a 70 or two in your urban areas. By Tuesday afternoon, the cold front moves through with showers and thunderstorms. I'll have to watch out the severity of these thunderstorms. Look for high temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 70s over the interior, mid to upper 70s along the coast, and lower 80s in the Delaware River Valley. On Wednesday, high pressure takes hold with scattered cloud cover. I can't rule out an isolated shower to the north via a trough, but for the most part, it's going to be quiet with low temperatures in the upper 50s over the interior, lower to mid 60s along the coast, and high temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 70s over the northern interior, upper 70s to lower 80s on the I-95 corridor, and mid to upper 70s along the coast. On Thursday, high pressure remains in control. A frontal boundary passes to our north, but should keep us dry for the most part. Look for tranquil conditions for overall, with low temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s over the northern interior, lower to mid 60s along the coast. High temperatures in the lower to mid 70s over the interior, upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast. And for Friday, high pressure is in control with low temperatures in the mid to upper 50s over the northern interior, upper 50s to lower 60s along the coast, and high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s over the northern interior, lower to mid 80s on the I-95 corridor and along the coast. That is your forecast discussion for today. I hope I covered everything for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, for this weekend, stay safe out there.